The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People teaches that lasting success isn't built through quick fixes or external achievements. It begins by transforming your character from the inside out. Master these 7 timeless habits, and you'll not only become more productive, but also build a life filled with purpose, trust, meaningful relationships, and lasting fulfillment. Why most self-help advice doesn't last. Walk into any bookstore. Search YouTube. Open social media. You'll find thousands of people promising success. Become rich in 30 days. Wake up at 5 in the morning. 10 hacks to become successful. 5 tricks to influence anyone. Most of these ideas focus on changing your behavior. But Stephen Covey says they're solving the wrong problem. Imagine a tree with dead leaves. Instead of fixing the roots, someone paints the leaves green. From a distance, everything looks healthy. But inside, the tree is still dying. Soon the leaves fall again. Most self-help advice works exactly like that. It changes appearances, not character. For a few weeks, people feel motivated. Then old habits quietly return, because nothing changed beneath the surface. Covey calls this the difference between the personality ethic and the character ethic. The personality ethic teaches us how to appear successful. Smile more. Dress better. Speak confidently. Use persuasive techniques. These things are useful, but they cannot replace genuine character. The character ethic teaches something much deeper. Become trustworthy. Become responsible. Become honest. Become disciplined. Become compassionate. Because lasting success is not something you pretend to have. It is something you become. Looking through the wrong lens. Stephen Covey introduces another powerful idea. Everything we see through our own lens. Imagine wearing blue sunglasses your entire life. Eventually, you would believe the whole world is blue. Not because it is, but because that's how you see it. Our beliefs work the same way. If you believe people cannot be trusted, you'll notice every betrayal. If you believe life is unfair, you'll find endless proof. If you believe success is impossible, your mind begins collecting evidence to support that belief. Our mindset shapes our reality far more than we realize. Covey calls these mental lenses paradigms. A paradigm is simply the way we see the world. And changing our life begins by changing that lens. The story of the crowded subway. Stephen Covey shares one experience that changed his thinking forever. One Sunday morning, he was riding a subway. The atmosphere was peaceful. People were quietly reading newspapers. Some were simply enjoying the silence. Then a man entered with several young children. The children immediately became loud. They ran around, shouted, disturbed everyone nearby. The father simply sat there, doing nothing. Covey became irritated. He couldn't understand how any parent could ignore such behavior. Finally, he politely approached the man. "Sir, your children are disturbing everyone. Could you please do something?" The man slowly looked up, almost as if waking from a dream. Then he quietly replied, "You're right. I suppose I should. We just came from the hospital. Their mother died about an hour ago. I honestly don't know what to do." Suddenly, everything changed. The children hadn't changed. The noise hadn't changed. The subway hadn't changed. Only Covey's paradigm changed. And the moment his perspective changed, his feelings changed. His behavior changed. His judgment disappeared. That story teaches an unforgettable lesson. Sometimes the biggest change we need isn't in other people. It's in the way we see them. Private victory comes before public victory. One of the central ideas of the entire book is this: you cannot effectively lead others until you learn to lead yourself. Imagine trying to build the second floor of a house without building the foundation. Impossible. Yet many people try to build successful careers, successful marriages, successful businesses without first developing personal discipline. Covey says lasting success follows a natural order. First, master yourself. Then master relationships. Finally, create lasting impact. This journey happens through 7 habits. The first 3 habits create what Covey calls private victory. They help you become independent. The next 3 create public victory. They teach you how to build strong relationships. The final habit helps you continue growing for the rest of your life. Everything begins with private victory. And that starts with habit 1. Habit 1: be proactive. Imagine 2 people lose their jobs on the same day. The first person blames the economy, blames the company, blames politics, blames bad luck. Months later, nothing changes. The second person is disappointed too. But after allowing themselves time to process the setback, they begin asking different questions. What skills do I need? What can I learn? Who can help me? What opportunities exist now? Eventually, they begin moving forward. Both experienced the same event, but one focused on what they couldn't control. The other focused on what they could. That is the difference between reactive people and proactive people. Your greatest freedom. One of the most powerful ideas in this book can be summarized in one sentence. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space. Inside that space lies your freedom. Most people believe life controls them. My boss makes me angry. My spouse ruined my day. Traffic stressed me out. My childhood determines my future. Covey disagrees. Events influence us, but they do not completely control us. We always have the power to choose our response. That choice is where effectiveness begins. Circle of concern vs. circle of influence. Imagine drawing 2 circles. The larger one contains everything you worry about: politics, inflation, weather, global conflicts, social media, other people's opinions. This is your circle of concern. Now imagine a much smaller circle inside it. This circle contains only the things you can actually influence: your attitude, your health, your habits, your learning, your work ethic, your reactions, your words. Highly effective people spend most of their energy inside this smaller circle. Ineffective people spend most of their lives complaining about the larger one. Every minute spent arguing about something you cannot control is a minute stolen from something you actually can improve. Ask yourself today, where is your energy going? Toward complaints or toward progress? Responsibility means responsibility. Covey offers a beautiful way to understand responsibility. He breaks the word into 2 parts: response and ability. Responsibility means the ability to choose your response. Not every event is your fault, but your response is always your responsibility. This single idea changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I do now?" Instead of saying, "I can't," ask, "How can I?" Those small changes in language slowly transform your mindset. The language of proactive people. Listen carefully to successful people. You'll notice something interesting. They rarely speak like victims. Instead of saying, "I have to," they say, "I choose to." Instead of "I don't have time," they say, "It isn't my priority." Instead of "I can't," They ask what would make it possible. Language shapes identity. The words you repeat every day become the story you believe about yourself. Choose those words wisely. The farmer's lesson. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. After 2 weeks, nothing appears. Should the farmer dig up the field and complain? Of course not. They understand that growth takes time. Yet many people expect instant success. They go to the gym for 1 week, then quit. Read one book, then stop learning. Start a business, then give up after the first setback. Nature teaches a different lesson. Real growth is gradual, patient, invisible at first, but remarkably powerful over time. The same applies to your habits, your relationships, your career, your character. Every small proactive decision is another seed planted. One day those seeds become a harvest. The power of choice. History is filled with people who faced extraordinary hardship. Some became bitter. Others became stronger. What made the difference? Not circumstances. Choice. We cannot always choose what happens, but we can always choose who we become because of what happens. That is the heart of Habit 1. A daily practice. Tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, ask yourself one simple question. What is one thing completely within my control today? Perhaps it's exercising. Perhaps it's speaking kindly. Perhaps it's finishing an important task. Focus there. Each day your circle of influence grows. And as it grows, so does your confidence, your effectiveness, and ultimately your life. Stephen Covey begins with perhaps the most important lesson in the entire book. If we want better results, we must first become better people. Success begins long before promotions, money, recognition, or achievements. It begins with one simple decision: to stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility for our own lives. Because the moment you realize that your greatest power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling your response to it, everything begins to change. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Imagine you're building your dream house. Months of planning, hundreds of workers, expensive materials, long hours of construction. Finally, the house is complete. But then someone quietly says, "This isn't the house you wanted." The architect used the wrong blueprint. Everything was built perfectly, but it was built for the wrong design. Wouldn't that be heartbreaking? Covey says many people unknowingly live exactly like this. They spend years climbing the ladder of success, only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. The danger of living on autopilot. Think about how most people make important life decisions. They choose a career because everyone else is doing it. They buy things to impress people they barely know. They chase promotions they don't truly want. They compare themselves with strangers on social media. Years pass. Then one day, they wake up feeling successful on paper, but empty inside. Why? Because they never stop to ask, what does success actually mean to me? Covey challenges us to define success for ourselves, instead of borrowing someone else's definition. Imagine your own funeral. This is one of the most famous exercises in the book. At first, it may sound uncomfortable, but stay with me. Imagine it's many years from now. You've lived a long life. People have gathered to remember you. Family members speak. Friends speak. Your colleagues speak. Perhaps your children speak. Now ask yourself, what do you hope they say? Would you want them to remember your wealth, or your kindness, your job title, or your integrity, your possessions, or the lives you touched. This simple exercise changes everything because it forces us to think beyond temporary achievements. It reminds us that every decision today is shaping the story people will remember tomorrow. The power of personal vision. Every successful organization has a mission. Every great company has values. Every nation has a constitution. But surprisingly, many people have never created one for themselves. Covey recommends writing a personal mission statement. Not something impressive, not something poetic, just a simple description of the person you want to become. Perhaps it says, I want to be a loving parent. I want to live with honesty. I want to keep learning. I want to leave people better than I found them. I want to serve others through my work. When difficult decisions arise, that mission becomes your compass. Without it, life becomes a series of random reactions. Your roles in life. Here's another powerful exercise. Think about the different roles you play. You might be a parent, a spouse, a son or daughter, a friend, an employee, a leader, a student, a business owner, a member of your community. Now ask yourself, if someone watched your daily schedule, would they know these roles actually matter to you? Many people say family comes first, but spend almost no meaningful time with family. Others say health is important, yet neglect sleep, exercise, and nutrition. Covey reminds us that our calendar often reveals our real priorities, better than our words ever do. Success without balance isn't success. Imagine becoming incredibly wealthy, but losing your marriage. Imagine building a famous business, but never seeing your children grow up. Imagine achieving recognition, but sacrificing your health. Would that truly be success? Probably not. Real success is balanced. It doesn't ignore work, but it also doesn't ignore the people who make life meaningful. The most effective people understand that every area of life deserves attention. Not equally every day, but intentionally over time. The story of the woodcutter. Imagine watching a man trying to cut down a huge tree. He's sweating, working harder every minute. Hours pass. Someone walks over and says, "Why don't you stop for a few minutes and sharpen your saw?" The woodcutter replies, "I don't have time. I'm too busy cutting." Sounds ridiculous. Yet many of us live exactly like this. We become so busy doing that we forget to think. We become so busy working that we forget to ask whether we're working on the right things. Habit 2 invites us to pause, reflect, and ensure we're building the life we actually want. Habit 3, put first things first. Now comes one of the most practical habits in the entire book. Imagine your day begins. Your phone immediately fills with notifications. Emails, messages, meetings, calls, deadlines. By lunchtime, you've been busy for hours. But then someone asks, "What truly important thing did you accomplish today?" Suddenly, you realize you don't know. Being busy is not the same as being effective. Covey says the key is not managing time. It's managing priorities. The jar of rocks. Imagine a large glass jar. Beside it are 4 things: large rocks, small stones, sand, water. If you fill the jar with sand first, the large rocks won't fit. But if you place the large rocks inside first, everything else naturally fits around them. Life works the same way. The large rocks represent what matters most: your health, your family, your purpose, your personal growth, your integrity. The sand represents distractions, endless scrolling, unnecessary meetings, pointless arguments, mindless entertainment. If you fill your life with sand, you'll never have room for what truly matters. The 4 quadrants. Stephen Covey introduces one of the most influential productivity models ever created. Imagine your daily tasks divided into 4 boxes. Quadrant 1, urgent and important, medical emergencies, deadlines, unexpected crises. These demand immediate attention. Quadrant 2, important, but not urgent. Exercise, learning, planning, building relationships, reading, thinking, developing new skills. Most successful people spend most of their lives here because they invest before problems appear. Quadrant 3, urgent, but not important. Someone else's interruptions, unnecessary meetings, constant notifications, many phone calls. These feel important, but often aren't. Quadrant 4, neither urgent nor important. Mindless scrolling, endless television, pointless internet browsing, activities that consume time without adding value. The secret of highly effective people. Covey says something remarkable. Highly effective people don't simply become better at handling emergencies. They prevent many emergencies from happening. How? By investing consistently in Quadrant 2. They exercise before illness appears. Save money before financial problems arise. Strengthen relationships before conflicts become severe. Learn continuously before their skills become outdated. They prepare instead of constantly reacting. Learning to say no. One of the hardest lessons in adulthood is learning to say no. Many people say yes because they fear disappointing others. They accept every invitation, every request, every extra responsibility. Eventually, they become exhausted. Covey reminds us that every time we say yes to something, we're automatically saying no to something else. Say yes to unnecessary work. You may be saying no to family dinner. Say yes to endless distractions. You may be saying no to your dreams. Effective people don't say yes to everything. They say yes to what matters most. Discipline creates freedom. Many people believe discipline limits freedom. Covey says the opposite. Imagine someone who exercises regularly. They enjoy greater health, more energy, more confidence. Imagine someone who saves money consistently. They experience less stress, more options, greater independence. Discipline may feel uncomfortable today, but it creates freedom tomorrow. Short-term comfort often creates long-term pain. Short-term discipline creates long-term freedom. The weekly perspective. Covey encourages planning life by weeks, not just days. Ask yourself each Sunday, what truly matters this week? Who needs my attention? What important project deserves progress? How will I invest in my health? How will I strengthen my relationships? Planning from values instead of pressure transforms productivity into purpose. A reflection. Imagine reaching the end of this week. Would you rather say, I answered every email. Or, I spent meaningful time with my family. I improved my health. I made progress toward my life's purpose. Busyness impresses people. Priorities transform lives. Bringing the first three habits together. Stephen Covey now reveals something beautiful. These first three habits build upon one another. Habit 1 says, you are responsible for your life. Habit 2 says, decide what kind of life you want. Habit 3 says, spend your time building that life every single day. Together, these habits create what Covey calls private victory. You are no longer controlled by circumstances. You are no longer drifting through life. You have become the architect of your future. Habit 4, think win-win. Imagine two children sharing a chocolate cake. One child quickly grabs the biggest slice. The other is left disappointed. The first child may have won the cake, but did they really strengthen the relationship? Probably not. Now imagine another situation. The two children divide the cake fairly. Both leave smiling. Both feel respected. Both trust each other more. Nobody lost. This simple example illustrates one of the most powerful principles in the entire book. Life is not a game where someone has to lose for someone else to win. Real success creates value for everyone involved. That is the essence of think win-win. The scarcity mindset. Stephen Covey says many people unknowingly live with what he calls a scarcity mentality. Imagine entering a room with 10 people. One person receives praise. Immediately, someone else feels jealous. A coworker gets promoted. Instead of celebrating, others become insecure. A friend starts a successful business. Instead of feeling inspired, some people feel threatened. Why? Because deep down, they believe success is limited. They think life is like a small pie. If someone else gets a bigger piece, there will be less left for them. This mindset quietly damages relationships. It creates competition where cooperation should exist, envy where admiration should exist, fear where confidence should exist. The abundance mindset. Now imagine seeing the world differently. Imagine believing that opportunities can be created, that another person's success doesn't reduce your own chances, that helping others often helps you grow too. This is the abundance mentality. People with this mindset celebrate others. They share ideas. They build partnerships. They support growth because they understand something important. The world is full of possibilities. There is enough success, enough happiness, enough opportunity for everyone willing to create value. Winning isn't everything. Many of us grew up believing that success means defeating someone else. Win the argument. Win the negotiation. Win the promotion. Win the competition. But Covey asks an important question. What happens after you win by humiliating someone? Perhaps you won the argument, but lost your spouse's trust. Perhaps you won the negotiation, but lost a future client. Perhaps you proved you were right, but damaged an important friendship. Was it really a victory? Sometimes, the greatest losses come disguised as victories. The 6 human interaction models. Covey explains that people usually approach relationships in one of 6 ways. Let's explore them. Win-lose. This is the mindset of domination. I win. You lose. People with this attitude want control, recognition, power. They don't mind if others suffer, as long as they succeed. Unfortunately, many workplaces operate this way. Some schools, even families. But over time, people stop trusting leaders who always need to win. Lose win. This mindset sounds humble, but it often comes from low self-esteem. I'll sacrifice my happiness. You decide. My needs don't matter. People living this way constantly please others. They avoid conflict. They remain silent even when something feels wrong. Eventually, resentment quietly builds inside. Healthy relationships cannot survive when one person always loses. Lose-lose. Sometimes, two people become so focused on hurting each other that everyone loses. Think of a bitter divorce, a destructive business rivalry, family members who stop speaking for years. Neither side truly wins. Pain simply spreads. When some people only care about themselves, they don't intentionally harm others. They simply don't think about them. If I succeed, that's enough. While this seems harmless, it often prevents deeper collaboration. Win-win or no deal. This is Covey's preferred mindset. Both people benefit. Both feel respected. Both leave satisfied. And if that isn't possible, they simply choose not to proceed. No resentment. No manipulation. No hidden agenda. Just mutual respect. Why win-win requires courage. Many people think being kind means always agreeing. Covey disagrees. Win-win requires both courage and consideration. Imagine a manager giving honest feedback. Avoiding the conversation may seem kind, but it prevents growth. Speaking honestly, with respect, creates a better outcome for everyone. True kindness sometimes means having difficult conversations, because real respect tells the truth. The bank account you can't see. Covey introduces one of his most memorable ideas. Imagine every relationship is like a bank account. Every act of kindness makes a deposit. Keeping promises. Deposit. Listening carefully. Deposit. Showing respect. Deposit. Being honest. Deposit. Now imagine the opposite. Breaking promises. Ignoring people. Criticizing unfairly. Being dishonest. Each becomes a withdrawal. Many relationships fail, not because of one major event, but because thousands of tiny withdrawals slowly empty the account. The healthiest relationships constantly make deposits. They invest before expecting returns. Trust is the real currency. Imagine hiring two people. The first is extremely talented, but unreliable. The second has slightly less experience, but always keeps their word. Who would you trust with your business? Probably the second. Why? Because trust multiplies everything. Teams move faster. Families become stronger. Businesses grow. Friendships deepen. Trust reduces fear. Trust reduces conflict. Trust creates freedom. And trust is built one small promise at a time. The story of the orange. Covey shares a simple story. Imagine two sisters arguing over the last orange in the kitchen. Both insist they knight it. The argument grows. Finally, their mother cuts the orange into two equal pieces. Problem solved. Not quite. One sister eats the fruit and throws away the peel. The other throws away the fruit because she only needed the peel for baking. Both received half. Yet each needed something different. If they had simply asked one another, both could have received everything they wanted. How many arguments happen because people assume, instead of asking? Win-win begins with curiosity, not assumptions. Competition vs. collaboration. Modern society often celebrates competition, and competition certainly has its place. Sports, innovation, personal improvement. But life isn't always a competition. Imagine a relay race. Would teammates compete against each other? Of course not. They succeed together. Families are relay races. Businesses are relay races. Communities are relay races. When one person helps another succeed, the entire team becomes stronger. Covey reminds us that collaboration often produces results no individual could achieve alone. Building long-term success. Some people focus only on today's victory. Covey asks us to think much further ahead. Imagine a business owner who tricks customers for quick profit. They may win today, but lose tomorrow. Now imagine another business owner. They treat customers fairly, admit mistakes, deliver qualities, honor commitments. Perhaps growth is slower at first, but trust compounds. Loyalty grows. Success becomes sustainable. Win-win thinking always plays the long game. A reflection. Think about one important relationship in your life. Perhaps your spouse, a friend, a colleague, a business partner. Now ask yourself, do I approach this relationship trying to prove I'm right, or trying to help both of us succeed? That single question can transform conversations, partnerships, even entire lives. The lesson to remember. Stephen Covey reminds us that life is not about collecting victories over other people. The greatest success comes from creating success together. Win-win is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is understanding that relationships built on trust, respect, and mutual benefit always outlast relationships built on competition and ego. The strongest leaders don't ask, "How can I win?" They ask, "How can we all win?" Because when everyone grows, everyone succeeds. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Imagine walking into a doctor's office. You sit down and begin explaining your symptoms. Before you've even finished speaking, the doctor interrupts. "I already know what's wrong." Without asking questions, without examining you, without listening, the doctor writes a prescription. Would you trust that doctor? Probably not. Yet, surprisingly, many of us communicate exactly this way. We interrupt. We assume. We prepare our response while the other person is still talking. We listen, not to understand, but to reply. Stephen Covey says this is one of the biggest communication mistakes we make. Listening is rare. Think about your last meaningful conversation. Were you completely present? Or were you secretly planning your response, checking your phone, judging their words, thinking about your own experience? Most people believe they are good listeners. But listening and hearing are not the same thing. Hearing is automatic. Listening is intentional. Listening requires patience, curiosity, humility, and genuine interest. The 4 levels of listening. Covey explains that not all listening is equal. The first level is ignoring. The other person is speaking, but your attention is somewhere else. The second level, pretending to listen. You nod, smile, say but mentally, you're miles away. This third level, selective listening. You hear only the parts that interest you. Everything else disappears. The fourth level, attentive listening. You focus carefully on the words. But there's one final level. The level Covey believes transforms relationships. Empathic listening. Listening not only to words, but also to emotions, to fears, to hopes, to what remains unsaid. The power of empathy. Imagine your friend says, "I'm exhausted." You immediately respond, "Everyone gets tired." Conversation over. Now imagine another response. "You sound overwhelmed. Do you want to talk about what's been happening?" The words are simple, but the impact is completely different. Why? Because people don't only want solutions. They want understanding. Sometimes, being heard is more healing than receiving advice. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with someone. It means making an honest effort to understand their experience. The story of the child. Imagine a little boy learning to tie his shoes. After several failed attempts, he becomes frustrated. A parent has two choices. They can say, "Stop crying. It's easy." Or they can kneel beside him and say, "I know this feels difficult. Let's figure it out together." The second response builds trust. Because the child feels understood. Adults are no different. No matter our age. We all want someone to understand us before trying to fix us. Most arguments begin here. Think about the last disagreement you witnessed. Perhaps at work. Perhaps at home. Perhaps online. How often did both sides genuinely try to understand each other? Usually, very little. Instead, each person focused on proving they were right. Two people talking, neither listening. No wonder conflict continues. Covey reminds us that understanding nearly always comes before agreement. If people feel heard, they're far more willing to hear you. Diagnose before you prescribe. Imagine a mechanic replacing your car's engine without checking what was actually wrong. Ridiculous. Yet we often give advice without understanding the real problem. Someone says, "I'm struggling at work." We immediately offer solutions. Find another job. Work harder. Stay positive. But perhaps they weren't looking for advice. Perhaps they simply needed someone to listen. Effective leaders, parents, teachers, friends, all understand one principle. Diagnosis comes before prescription. Always. Listening builds trust. Imagine working for two different managers. The first constantly interrupts, dismisses your ideas, already has every answer. The second asks thoughtful questions, listens carefully, makes you feel valued. Which manager would inspire greater loyalty? The answer is obvious. People support leaders who make them feel heard. Because listening communicates something powerful. You matter. And few gifts are more valuable than making another person feel important. Then seek to be understood. Covey doesn't stop with listening. He reminds us that your own voice also matters. Many people confuse kindness with silence. They avoid difficult conversations, suppress their feelings, stay quiet to keep the peace. But healthy relationships require honesty too. The difference is timing. First, understand. Then, share your perspective respectfully. When people feel understood, they're much more open to hearing your ideas. Communication becomes collaboration. Instead of competition, a reflection. Today, try something different. In your next conversation, resist the urge to interrupt. Ask one extra question. Listen a little longer. You may discover that understanding another person changes both of you. Habit 6. Synergize. Now Stephen Covey introduces one of his favorite ideas. Synergy. At first, the word sounds complicated, but the meaning is beautifully simple. The whole can become greater than the sum of its parts. Imagine two musicians. Each plays beautifully alone, but together, they create harmony neither could produce individually. Imagine an orchestra. One violin, one piano, one flute, one drum. Very different instruments. Yet together, they create music. That is synergy. Celebrating differences. Many people fear differences. Different opinions. Different cultures. Different personalities. Different experiences. They assume difference creates conflict. Covey sees something entirely different. Difference creates possibility. Imagine a football team where everyone is a goalkeeper. Would that team succeed? Of course not. A great team needs defenders, midfielders, strikers. Each contributes something unique. Life works the same way. We grow most when we learn from people who think differently. The pencil story. Imagine holding a single pencil. Useful. Now imagine tying 10 pencils together. Suddenly, breaking them becomes much harder. People are similar. Together, we become stronger. Together, ideas improve. Problems become easier. Creativity expands. Isolation limits us. Collaboration multiplies us. The power of diverse thinking. Imagine a company facing a difficult challenge. One engineer proposes a technical solution. A designer focuses on user experience. A marketer understands customer behavior. A finance expert evaluates costs. Each person sees something different. Individually, their ideas remain incomplete. Together, a stronger solution emerges. This is why the greatest innovations rarely come from one genius working alone. They come from teams. Teams willing to respect different perspectives. The bamboo forest. Nature offers a beautiful example of synergy. A single bamboo tree bends easily in the wind, but a bamboo forest survives powerful storms. Why? Because beneath the ground, their roots connect. They strengthen one another. People thrive the same way. No matter how talented you become, you will always achieve more through meaningful relationships than through isolation. Ego is the enemy of synergy. Why do collaborations sometimes fail? Usually, not because of intelligence, but because of ego. One person insists my idea is better. Another refuses to compromise. A third fears admitting they're wrong. Soon, progress stops. Covey reminds us that humility is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means remaining open to learning from others. The third alternative. Most disagreements assume there are only two options: your way or my ways. Covey challenges us to search for a third alternative. A better solution neither person originally imagined. Imagine two coworkers disagreeing over a project. Instead of fighting, they brainstorm together. Eventually, they discover an entirely new approach. one that satisfies both sides. That is synergy, not compromise. Creation. Innovation begins with respect. Every major invention, every breakthrough business, every successful partnership started with people willing to combine different strengths. Apple wasn't built by one person. NASA didn't reach the moon alone. Great hospitals, great universities, great companies, great families, all thrive because people learn to build together. The future belongs to those who collaborate, not those who isolate themselves. Bringing habits 4, 5, and 6 together. Notice how beautifully these habits connect. Habit 4 teaches us to think win-win. Habit 5 teaches us to understand before speaking. Habit 6 teaches us to create something better together. One builds trust. The next builds understanding. The third builds extraordinary results. This is what Stephen Covey calls public victory. Success is no longer just personal. It now expands into every relationship you have. The lesson to remember. The quality of your life is directly connected to the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships depends on how well you communicate. Listen deeply. Respect differences. Seek solutions where everyone grows. Because when trust replaces ego, and curiosity replaces judgment, people stop competing against one another. They begin creating something far greater together. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Imagine watching a woodcutter working deep in a forest. Hour after hours, he swings his axe. His movements become slower. The cuts become weaker. The tree barely moves. Someone nearby asks, "Why don't you stop for 10 minutes and sharpen your axe?" The woodcutter replies, "I don't have time. I'm too busy cutting." It sounds ridiculous. Yet millions of people live exactly like this. They're constantly busy, always working, always rushing, always responding, but they never pause to renew themselves. Eventually, their energy fades. Their creativity disappears. Their relationships suffer. Their health declines, not because they lack ability, but because they forgot to sharpen the saw. Success is a marathon, not a sprint. Modern society celebrates being busy. People proudly say, "I only slept 4 hours. I haven't taken a vacation in years. I work every weekend." At first, it sounds impressive. But Covey asks an important question. If success costs your health, was it really success? If success destroys your family, was it worth it? If success leaves you exhausted, can you truly enjoy it? Real effectiveness isn't about working until you collapse. It's about building a life you can sustain for decades. The 4 dimensions of renewal. Covey explains that every human being has 4 essential dimensions. Ignoring any one of them eventually creates imbalance. Let's explore each one. Physical renewal. Your body is the vehicle that carries you through life. Yet many people treat it as an afterthought. Imagine buying the world's most expensive luxury car. Would you forget to change the oil? Ignore maintenance. Drive it without caring for the engine? Of course not. Yet we often treat our own bodies far worse. Late nights, poor nutrition, little movement, constant stress. Eventually, the body sends warning signs. Fatigue, pain, illness. Covey reminds us that exercise isn't only about appearance. It's about having the energy to live fully. Even a daily walk, stretching, better sleep, or healthier meals can dramatically improve every other area of life. Because when your body feels stronger, your mind becomes stronger too. Mental renewal. Imagine using the same computer for years without updates. Eventually, it slows down. New programs stop working. Errors appear. The human mind works the same way. If we stop learning, we slowly stop growing. Highly effective people remain lifelong students. They write, study, ask questions, learn new skills, challenge their assumptions. They understand that education doesn't end after school. In many ways, that's where real education begins. Ask yourself, what new idea have you learned this month? What book challenged your thinking? What skill are you developing? Your future often depends on how committed you remain to learning. Emotional and social renewal. Success means very little if experienced alone. Human beings are designed for connection. Yet in today's world, many relationships quietly weaken. Families eat dinner while looking at their phones. Friends communicate through emojis instead of conversations. Coworkers sit beside one another, yet rarely connect. Covey reminds us that relationships require intentional investment. Call your parents. Spend uninterrupted time with your children. Express appreciation to your spouse. Thank a colleague. Forgive someone. Apologize when necessary. Small moments of kindness create extraordinary relationships over time. Just like a bank account, relationships grow through consistent deposits. Spiritual renewal. When Covey speaks about spirituality, he isn't referring only to religion. He's speaking about purpose, meaning, values, inner peace. Ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? What principles guide your decisions? What kind of person are you becoming? Some people find renewal through prayer, others through meditation, nature, journaling, quiet reflection, reading inspiring books, serving others. The activity matters less than the result. Creating space to reconnect with your deepest values. Because when life becomes noisy, silence often restores clarity. The law of continuous improvement. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they've arrived. I know enough. I'm experienced. I've already succeeded. Covey warns against this mindset. The moment growth stops, decline quietly begins. Imagine a beautiful garden. If you stop caring for it, weeds slowly appear. Not overnight, gradually. The same happens with character, health, relationships, skills. Improvement is not a destination. It is a lifelong habit. Small improvements change everything. Think back to the book Atomic Habits. James Clear teaches that tiny improvements compound over time. Stephen Covey believed exactly the same principle. You don't need to transform your life today. Read 10 pages. Walk 20 minutes. Call one friend. Learn one new idea. Express one act of gratitude. Repeat tomorrow. Then the next day. Years later, those tiny choices become an extraordinary life. The bamboo story. Have you ever heard about the Chinese bamboo tree? After planting its seed, nothing visible happens. Not for weeks, not for months, sometimes, not for years. Many people would assume the seed is dead. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. The roots are growing, stronger, deeper, wider. Then one day, The bamboo suddenly grows several feet in just a few weeks. Did it really grow overnight? No, it was preparing all along. Our lives often work the same way. The books you read, the habits you build, the conversations you have, the discipline you practice. Much of it feels invisible. Until one day, people call you an overnight success. They see the bamboo. They never saw the roots. Bringing all 7 habits together. Let's step back and see the complete picture. Habit 1 taught us, be proactive. Take responsibility. Habit 2 reminded us, begin with the end in mind. Live with purpose. Habit 3 showed us, put first things first. Prioritize what matters. Habit 4 taught, think win-win. Seek mutual success. Habit 5 encouraged us, listen before speaking. Understand before judging. Habit 6 inspired us, value differences. Create together. And habit 7 reminds us, never stop growing. Never stop learning. Never stop renewing yourself. These aren't 7 separate habits. They're 7 pieces of one complete philosophy. Together, they transform not only what we do, but who we become. The biggest lesson of the book. Many people read this book expecting productivity tips, leadership techniques, communication skills. And yes, they'll find those. But beneath every chapter lies one powerful message. Character comes before competence. The world teaches us to chase success. Covey teaches us to become the kind of person capable of handling success wisely. Because without character, achievement often feels empty. But when success is built upon integrity, purpose, discipline, and service, it becomes lasting. Today, we live in a world filled with distractions, notifications, comparison, endless opinions, constant pressure to move faster, produce more, own more, become more. Stephen Covey's message feels more relevant today than ever before. Slow down. Think deeply. Focus on principles, not popularities. Invest in relationships, not just achievements. Build your character, not just your resume, because trends change. Technology changes. Markets change. But principles never do. Honesty still matters. Kindness still matters. Responsibility still matters. Discipline still matters. Trust still matters. And they always will. Before this summary ends, pause for a moment. Ask yourself these questions. Am I living intentionally or simply reacting? What matters most to me? Do my daily actions reflect my deepest values? Who in my life needs more of my attention? What habit should I begin practicing today? Remember, you don't need to master all 7 habits overnight. Choose one. Practice it consistently. Allow it to become part of who you are. Then move to the next. Real transformation happens gradually, just like the growth of a tree. Invisible at first, powerful over time. Final summary. The greatest lesson of the 7 habits of highly effective people is beautifully simple. Success is not something you chase. It is something you attract by becoming the right person. When you become proactive, purposeful, disciplined, respectful, empathetic, collaborative, and committed to lifelong growth, success naturally follows, not only in your careers, but in your family, your friendships, your leadership, and your relationship with yourself. Stephen Covey reminds us that effectiveness is not about doing more. It's about becoming better. Better every day. One decision, one habit, one conversation, one act of integrity at a time. Because in the end, people will not remember how busy you were. They will remember how you made them feel, the values you lived by, the trust you earned, and the difference you made in their lives. That is the true measure of success. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most influential personal development books ever written. If this summary inspired you, don't let it end here. Choose one habit today. Apply it. Live it. Because books have the power to change our thinking. But only action has the power to change our lives. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building a life guided by wisdom, purpose, and character. Welcome to the Wisdom Library, where the world's greatest books become powerful ideas for a better life.